The role of a producer is not the same for everyone. Some people, it's extremely hands-on, and other people play a slightly different role. Let me tell you about Rick Rubin real quick, all right? This is Andrew Sheps talking about Rick Rubin, one of the most prolific and amazing producers that's ever lived. Fair use, this is fair use for teaching purposes.
What from his style of production have you taken?
The biggest thing
board?
is to always be listening to the song and the performance. I mean, that's it. That's all he ever does is listen to music. And his ability to never lose perspective is his talent. He's always listening like it's the first time he's ever heard it, which is, that's insane.
Sure.
So that for me is absolutely the biggest thing. The, you know, how he does stuff or what he chooses to do is almost completely irrelevant. It's the ability to, first of all, not take yourself too seriously in terms of what you're doing, and second of all, to always just be listening to what's coming out of the speakers and assess it as objectively as you can.
Sure.
If he's going to be the producer and the overall guy for making sure this record is awesome, it doesn't actually serve the band for him to be there while the guitar player is trying to come up with a part for the pre-chorus, because he will react to the very initial performance of it. And if it's not quite there yet, it's not good.
Yeah.
So why does he need to be there to tell you it's not good? I mean, if you don't know it's not good, then you've got much more serious problems. So it makes sense for him not to be there while you're figuring stuff out,
Sure.
and then he will assess it and tell you what he thinks about it.
What Rick does best is always hear the song for the first time. Every time he's heard it, no matter how many times, he's always listening as if it's the first time he's heard it. The point of being able to separate yourself from what you're hearing is why we take a day off between finishing the mix and then listening again, or why we wait till the next day. You gotta give yourself that time. If you're gonna be producing the thing yourself, that's a totally different headspace than engineering it and the technicality of getting the sounds to be the way you want and like just getting the levels right. Just making sure you're not clipping, and the technical aspect of that. That's the beauty of having multiple mic pre's, multiple inputs ready to go, so that you can kind of get that set ahead of time. In other words, production mindset is creative. It's, does this work? Am I getting the feeling I'm trying to get from this? Totally separate mindset from dialing in the tone to make sure it's, you know, the right amount of level and not clipping. It's a totally different mindset. You almost can't do that technical thing and the other thing at the same time if you want to do either of them great. You know, sure, dial in the tone first on all your instruments, on your vocals, leave it all set, then move into the production mind, and then you can try to maintain this objective perspective. The entire way, you will be able to make better music that connects, that you actually feel something from if, number one, you're never thinking about, will people like this? You only have to be thinking about, how does it make you feel? Not the technical aspect of what you may be doing that in your mind is so great because you're a musician. You know, other thing you have to add to this here is Rick Rubin's able to listen for the first time every time because he doesn't fancy himself a musician. He's not considering himself somebody who is technically very capable of playing instruments. So he's not in the minutia of what the part is. He doesn't care if it modulates from this to this and changes. He doesn't care. What does it feel like is all he's concerned about. That's it. Is everything working together in order to make it feel like it's going to elicit emotions? If it doesn't start to move you, if you're just thinking about the riff and how great it is, you're never going to get there. The people who are doing their own record mostly so concerned with performing the part correctly that they lose track of what it's making people feel like. In other words, their filter is not on the right thing. It's not set right. Their filter should be set for emotion. It should be set for what is happening here as a collective whole. Instead, they're thinking about whatever they just did. You know, so if you're going to be the guy who's recording, producing, you know, mixing, doing it all, you have to put in fail-safes to help yourself to at least avoid some of these pitfalls. You have to, because if you don't, you'll just wind up making the same type of music you've made before. And if you don't think you've got the success that you want from what you've done, if you don't think it ever made you feel great when you're done, change what you're doing, change the whole process. Because if Rick can listen for the first time every time, that's a talent you have to actually work at. You have to work at the separation. Mixing is so mental. The technical abilities to do certain things are incredibly important, but they're second. They're second. Those abilities to identify what's wrong or what's right and how to do whatever and how to change what you're hearing, those are important. But if you can't ever step back and look at the big picture view at will, you'll never ever be working on the right things. You realize how important it is to have that perspective? Rick's ability to step back and look at it from a whole, and the fact that his taste just happens to translate to everyone's taste. This is not an accident. He is one of the people that is most truly devoted to never caring if this thing is gonna sell. Rick's never thinking about that. He's thinking, what's the most surprising thing this artist has to offer, and how do I deliver that? Because he knows surprise is what's going to get people's attention, not the same old. The same old never gets attention. Also, he's never caught up in what people are doing. Like Andrew Shep said, he'll leave the room when people are recording certain things if they're trying to hammer it down and they don't know exactly what's going on. He's got nothing to do there because his goal is to come in and listen and assess. How can he listen and assess while you're creating, while you're figuring it out? It's not going to be possible. He's got to assess from an objective perspective. So he waits till it's done, then he comes through and he listens. This is like, do this with your own music. If you are in a place where you're creating, you're coming up with parts, do that, then take your break. Maybe next day, come back so your head is super clear. Assess what you've done. Work on other things in the meantime. You know, I stress this. Andrew Sheps talks about this all the time, but I maybe heard it first from him, but he's working on 3-4 songs at a time so that he can maintain this concept of when he stops understanding what to do when he's mixing. In other words, he knows exactly what he wants because things are raising their hand and saying, help me, help me, help me. So he's like, okay, I'll fix that. All right, this needs this. Okay, this should be, okay. And as soon as his brain stops telling him, as soon as he can't see anybody with their hand up, he abandons ship, a phrase I use a lot. He goes to another song, and then he then sees again, okay, this is raising hands. So then he's always working from a place of perspective. Once he doesn't know what's wrong, or for even a moment, doesn't see the hands raised of the things within the track that need to be addressed, he's not going to beat it up. He's not going to overcook it. He's not going to overthink it. He's moving on. This is something you have to train yourself to do. But bottom line is you cannot be creating and also judging what's happening at the same time. You have to create and get that done and then listen with a fresh head. Your goal should be, how do I be able to zoom out at will? How do I be able to just see this thing objectively every time I look at it? Because that's what Rick can do, and that's what makes him so special. What he's doing, as Andrew said, is not even relevant. Like the decisions he's making for any given song is not relevant. Rick's ability to zoom out and his ability to point out whatever it is that needs to be changed is what helps the most. And that could just be, you know, maybe give me another take on that. I don't feel anything from that. It could be as simple as that. But when you're producing your own stuff, you need to be able to be as simple as that. As listen back and go, all right, I see what I was trying to do, but I didn't do it. That's being honest with yourself. That's also having that objective look every time you need it. It's objective. Trust me when I tell you, this is possible for people to do for themselves, but you got to know what you're shooting for. What are you aiming for? That's what you're aiming for. You're not aiming for the most perfect performance. You're not aiming to be somebody who gets everything perfect. That's the opposite of what Rick's going for. He's going for a feeling, and he's going for surprise, because if you surprise people, you already got their attention. Now you just got to keep it. And since it's all about emotion, there's different emotions. There's anger, there's sadness, there's happiness. There's all these emotions. You got to play on them all. And a big way you can play on these emotions is when things are unexpected. When you're doing that and you're looking at it objectively, does it make you feel something? Because if it doesn't, what makes you think it's going to make anybody else feel anything? Because they don't care about the complexity of the song. Why does Jimmy Page, somebody who could play absolutely, anything, the way I look at it, he's one of my favorite guitarists of all time. Listen to, with a little help from my friends, I heard that riff, that guitar riff in the beginning, that beautiful 3-note, blah, 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 that riff is so simple. Why is it so simple? Because that's what elicited the emotion that was necessary. He could have done anything there, but he did something so simple. Look at your stuff this way. Get the emotion out of it. The rest doesn't matter. If you dug the video, do me a favor. Throw the emotion down in the comments section. I gotta hear it. Gotta hear it. It helps me. It keeps me alive over here. Seriously. Also, hit the like button if you dug it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Tons more videos to come. Evan Jaffe, Custom Cut Studios. You guys got this.